In previous videos, we talked about cloud services, and we said that one of the jobs of a cloud service is to expose endpoints for your virtual machines. We have a cloud service DNS name, which maps to a virtual IP address, and then there are public ports. When we connect these public ports, our traffic is then forwarded to private ports on virtual machines inside the cloud service. For Microsoft virtual machines, two ports are exposed as endpoints. One port that allows access to RDP connections, and a second port that allows access to a remote PowerShell connection to the virtual machine. Here in my subscription, I've got two virtual machines, VM1 and VM2. They're both inside the same cloud service, and we can see the cloud service name underneath the DNS column. If I select virtual machine 1 and then select endpoints, we can see details of the public and private ports that are used to give access to PowerShell and remote desktops on this virtual machine. And it's the PowerShell ports we're interested in, and specifically the public port, because this is the port that we need to connect to on the outside, from the outside, to access PowerShell on VM1. And we can see that VM1's public port for PowerShell is 5986. We do have a separate video on creating and managing endpoints if you want more information about how these endpoints are created. What we want to do in this video is show you how to connect this public PowerShell port. Now we're going to start off then by using the integrated scripting environment and showing the command used to create a remote PowerShell connection. So if I flip to the integrated scripting environment on my machine, so here we are, and we can see that I've used the command, or I'm going to use a command that enter PS session. This allows me to enter a remote PowerShell session on a machine that supports remote PowerShell. Then we have the computer name parameter. This is not the computer name that we're trying to connect to, so it's not VM1. The name that we're trying to connect to is the public name, and this is the name of the cloud service. Remember, this maps to a virtual IP address, so my cloud service is mgbleadcs.cloudapp.net, and then we provide the port details 5986. This is the public port I'm trying to connect to. We set the SSL $true to use SSL connection, then minus credentials, so we'll be prompted for credentials when we run this command. So if I run this command, so if I run this selection of code, we're connecting to the right cloud service, the right port, and I say run this selection of code here, it prompts me for a username and password. So if I include my username and password, now this username and password, it's not your Azure administration name and password. When you created your virtual machines, you will have been asked for an administrator name and password for that virtual machine, and that's the credentials we need here. They're going to be passed on to that virtual machine to give me remote PowerShell access. Now, hopefully, if I say OK here, we're going to see an error message. So if I say OK, and there we've got an error. Now, this is an expected error at this point. It's quite a common error when we're trying to use remote PowerShell connections into virtual machines in Azure. And it's quite a detailed message. It tells us exactly what's going on. You can see it says here, the service certificate on the destination computer has the following error. The SSL certificate is signed by an unknown certificate authority. So the certificate authority that's issued this cert is untrusted, basically. And that's because the cloud services and the virtual machines use self-signed certificates that are created when the cloud service and the VMs are created. So they're not trusted by your local computer. So tools like PowerShell just cannot continue when they're presented with these digital certificates. So if I want to remote PowerShell into this virtual machine, what I have to do first is make sure that the cloud service certificate, not the virtual machine certificate, the cloud service certificate is added to my trusted root stores. Now, the easiest way to do this is to grab a copy from a browser. So if you open up whichever your preferred browser is, and we're going to use a combination. So in a combination of the cloud service name and port number. So if I copy the cloud service name there, and include the port number I'm trying to connect to, so 5986, and this will be a HTTPS connection. So HTTPS, the name of the cloud service, and the port 5986. And again, this should give us an error. And if I just maximize the browser, it's the same sort of thing. You know, the certificate being presented is from an untrusted source. But what this allows us to do is, if I say, you know, view information here, we can see information about the connection, including the certificate information. So I can say select certificate information, and viewing the certificate, we can see the issued to, issued by. So this is a self-signed certificate, and again, crucially, it says the certificate is not from a trusted source. So if we go to the details tab, I can say copy this certificate to file, and we'll just save the certificate locally. Give it a name, CS cert, and we save that. So we save a copy of that certificate, and now we need to install a certificate. So I'm just going to go to my desktop and install that certificate now. So here I am on my desktop. We can see the digital certificate that we downloaded. So right click, install certificate. We'll install it for the local machine. And although it usually picks the correct store, I'm going to say place all certificates in the following store, and make sure we highlight the trusted root certificate authority store. So we say next and finish, and the import was done successfully. So if we OK that, and now go back to the ISE, and we'll just tidy up the screen a little bit here first. So hopefully now the certificate's part of the trusted root store. If we highlight the code again and say run selection, provide the correct username and password, and say OK, and we'll just give it a minute. There's no error straight away, so that's a good sign. It'll just take a minute now to connect us into that PowerShell session. So there you go. You can see it's connected us now to remote PowerShell session. It has connected us to VM1. As long as we use the appropriate port, it'll connect us to the appropriate machine. I do have a second VM in the cloud service that obviously is using different external ports. If I've got 10 VMs in this cloud service, I only have to have the certificate imported once, and that will give me access to all 10 VMs. If you have 3 or 4 cloud services and you've got virtual machines in each one that you want to remote PowerShell into, then you'll need to import a digital certificate for each cloud service into your trusted root store. So keep an eye out for further Azure videos, where in later videos we're going to be talking more about PowerShell management. We're also going to introduce the cross-platform command line tool as well as looking at some of the more advanced Azure features. Thank you.